didn't. Um, I will get this eventually, but thank you so much for being on the Instagram Live for Sisters in Crime.
Hi, great to see you. I'm so excited to be here. I was going to say I'm in the Central Heart of Texas chapter, and I wanted to say if you know anybody, if anyone's out there, if you're in Central Texas and you're interested in Sisters in Crime, come see us because we're a friendly bunch.
Yeah. The Sisters in Crime has over 50 chapters worldwide, and you can join as many chapters as you want. So, highly recommended to, especially local chapters, can be great because they'll have in person meetups and they'll also have other types of meetups. So, uh, let's hope that everything's syncing up and we're live. But I want to introduce everyone to Marla Cooper. She is going to be talking to us today. We do these Instagram lives every week with tips, different members of Sisters in Crime offering information. But this month, we are in the middle of the Summer Scrawl. So the Summer Scrawl is for Sisters in Crime members, and it's an opportunity to take the month of July and finish a project. That can be research, that can be writing, that can be editing, that can be whatever it is. And we have 5 write-ins a day for the entire month. So, and we've got other tools to help you get it done. If you aren't a member of Sisters in Crime, now is a great time to join because if you use the code SUMMER26, you will get a half price membership for the rest of the year. And trust me when I say there's a lot going on at Sisters in Crime. These write-ins, we have webinars, we have a webinar library, and we also have a fabulous community. So now is the time to join if you haven't done that yet. But this month we're going to talk about craft because although people are going to be writing and doing their write-ins today, we want to give everyone a moment to be able to say, let me learn something more, or I'm stuck, or this isn't helping, and just have people who are really good at things talk to you about stuff. So Marla agreed to talk about dialogue today. And so we have 5 tips to talk about for writing realistic dialogue. And so she sent them to me. I'm going to pretend I'm brilliant and came up with them and have her respond, but these are all her. But 5 tips for writing realistic dialogue. And the first tip is pay attention to rhythm. So can you talk about what that means?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say I dialogue is one of my favorite things to write. And sometimes I'll just write the scene dialogue first and then go through and, pull back some and summarize some and then add exposition, add description. But I think of it as like, it is kind of the engine that keeps the story moving because, people talk. That's what we do. And I'm a talker. I like to talk. And any of my friends would be able to tell you that. So to me, the dialogue is the really fun part. And it makes everything, it kind of brings it to life. It really tells you a lot about the character. It sets the scene. It can do a lot of heavy lifting in a way that exposition can't always. If you're a cozy author like me, or if you write humorous amateur sleuth, it's a great way to work in humor, which is also, a really great, like my banter between my characters is one of my favorite things to write. And that's where I actually will literally make myself laugh because it's like I'm having a conversation with the other character and then they'll say something and I'll be like, oh, that's really funny. So anyway, so one thing with the rhythm, there's a natural rhythm to the way we talk. And there's short sentences, there's long sentences, there's sentence fragments. I'm blanking on the word and I shouldn't be contractions. Thank you. I am a big fan of using contractions because when you don't, everything sounds very stilted. So it's kind of using contractions and varying the sentence length and using sentence fragments when it calls for it. That's how people talk. So, people don't talk in a very structured, your character might, but don't have all of your characters talk that way. You might have a character who does, but I always think of Peggy Hill on King of the Hill, who never spoke. She never used a contraction. She would say, I am not going to go. It was all very precise. But in the real world, we're sloppy or we're messy. Excuse me. We cough in the middle of a sentence. And so, work that in. Use the natural rhythms of how people actually talk.
Well, and one more thing about natural rhythms is depending on where you are, let's take the United States as an example, there are different rhythms for different regions. And if you have, it's a great place to add that extra layer of where this character is, or give them some more gravitas. It's, if it,
Mm-hmm.
certain words or certain contractions are more regional. And I think that that's an important thing to understand as well.
Definitely. And one tip that I didn't add, but almost made the cut, it can be a bonus sixth tip, is that you can really use the dialogue as a way to distinguish your characters in that same way that you're saying with the different regional dialects and everything. It can really, like, there's certain things that one character might say that another character would never say ever. I had one character who speaks in a very clipped, like indignant, like everything she said felt indignant. You would never mistake her. Like you could take out the names and you would know who was talking. You wouldn't have to wonder like, oh, is that Mrs. Abernathy or is that Kelsey?
So your second tip, or your third, let's pretend there are six now, use attribution tags sparingly.
Yeah. So I see a lot of times people will just, write da 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 da. He said da 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 da. She said da 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 da. He said, and you need some obviously, and first of all, don't use super crazy ones. He said and she said is fine when you are using them, but also consider breaking it up with things other than he said, like he took the chair, he pushed the chair in, or he slammed the door or something. And it can break it up so that if it's connected to that, if the action is connected to the thing that was just said, who said it. And my example here that I have is, I don't know why people are afraid of me. Michael picked up the knife and started toying with it idly. I wouldn't hurt a fly. So, that Michael said that, but you don't have to be like, I don't know why people are afraid of me, Michael said. Because it gets very, it feels like a tennis match, especially if you're using short sentences, if there's an exchange with several short sentences, and you have to just go, back and forth. Kelsey said, Brody said, Kelsey said, Brody said. It gets into like a monotonous rhythm almost. So you want to break it up with different action.
Yeah, great point.
It does a lot of heavy lifting.
It does a lot of heavy lifting. And also, if you do have 3 or 4 people talking, using that, your example is a great way to remind people of who's speaking and also add some movement into the conversation.
Yeah, and it grounds it more in the place that they're in, or in the scene that they're in. Like I was just working on a scene where it's a bartender and he's like making drinks. So it's like every time he would talk, he'd also be like, putting a citrus around on the rim of the glass, or muddling some mint or something.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. That's great. Fourth tip you had is cut the small talk.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people do this, but there's someone out there who needs to hear this, which is like, you don't have to transcribe the entire conversation dutifully. You don't have to be like, hello, Julie, how are you today? She said. And then there's a lot of things that are said that don't need to be said. So be judicious with what you choose to use. And you can even have like a little bit of the dialogue and then a little bit of summary and then for the next half hour, I grilled him about tall ships in the Boston seaport, to use a recent example. We were just chatting about that before. Anyway, you can sum it up without having to say every single thing that the person said.
Yeah, I love that. Your fifth tip is avoid info dumps.
Yeah, so this was a big one. I used to work in advertising, and I would notice that a lot of people, when they would write like a commercial, they would have the people say the most unnatural sounding things because they were trying to get information across. And I notice a lot of times in fiction, people do that too, that they'll have their characters just say things that are not conversational and that the other character knows. And it's like when you're watching, sometimes it happens even in a TV show, and it's just like, these characters know each other. So why are they saying, as you know, Sheila, you and I met back in 2014 at Columbia University. You were an undergrad and I was your RA. It's just like, they don't have them say the things that the other character would already know. And also don't have them just, vomit a bunch of information, like tease it out a little bit, have them, people don't always say everything in one sentence. So I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think that this is a nuance, right? This is a conversation, because the info dump, you can use dialogue to inform something, right? So, a character could say, when you married my brother, I told you he was a jerk, right? So it's like you're kind of giving them some background, but you're not overdoing it. So it can be super helpful to drive things or to drop clues if you're writing crime. But you're right. You trust the reader that they're going to be able to make the leaps from a conversation.
Yeah, and there's something that, I mean, it's a good skill to be able to slip it in craftily, like things like that, where you can get the information across without having it be like, and also a big part of it is like giving little pieces at a time. Like, don't have them monologize and be like, blah, 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 and go on and on about something just because you really need them to know all this information. That is not the time to do it, because that's not how people talk.
Well, and so I'm just going to keep inserting things with the monologues, sure. Breaking up dialogue with action. So if somebody needs to have a monologue, they need to explain something, don't break it up. They're making a sandwich, they're cutting the bread, they're doing this, they ran out of mayonnaise, whatever they're doing, have them do the action as well, so that the reader can sort of get a sense of place and give them some other stuff to do.
Well, and you can spread it out too. Like, if you really do have a lot of things that you need to say, it doesn't have to be all in one big paragraph. It can be, the other person can ask a question. You can go back and forth. You can have it be part of a conversation and not just like a bleh. And that's my technical term for it.
It's a good technical term. I also, you said this earlier, but dialogue can give character. So that there are some people who monologue, and there are some people who can't get two sentences out without being interrupted. So think about who's in the room and who's doing the talking, and what the other people, what kind of people they are, as far as that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that could be super fun. I mean, I worked in theater for years, not an actor, but, spent time. And so plays are all dialogue. I mean, that's everything. And so reading plays or screenplays can be helpful in understanding how to do this and what this goes. But it's really hard to do that, to give a lot of information in dialogue. But it's such a great skill. So I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Yeah. I love that tip of reading plays. My husband's actually a playwright, and you really have to craft it carefully, knowing that you can't have a narrator step onto stage and say, she was really thinking of her childhood back in Baltimore. Let
me tell you about Aunt Betsy and what she did. I mean, I give playwrights all the credit in the world, because it is, I think, the hardest thing. I've tried screenplay writing, I've tried playwriting. It is so hard to be able to push the narrative forward only with dialogue. In plays, that's what it is. And it's such a skill.
No one's going to save you.
No one's going to save you. And when it's done well, it's just the best.
Yeah,
really
yeah.
The best. So I love your final tip, and I think that this is the final tip, good craft tip, no matter what, for authors. And it's really hard to do, in that, we don't always take the time. And the tip is to read it aloud.
Yeah. So, so going back to the playwriting thing we were just talking about, a lot of times people will have staged readings just to, playwrights will have staged readings of their plays so they can actually hear it, because it's one thing to see it on the page, but then it's another thing to hear the words. And so, I think it's a great thing to read it out loud, try to get through the conversation. If you have someone that you can rope into it, get them to act it out with you and do the conversation back and forth. Or even better yet, have two other people read it for you and see how it sounds. And if you go, oh my gosh, no one would ever talk like that. I think, if if you can't get through it, and if something's a mouthful and you just really can't get through the sentence, then the reader's not going to, they're going to have the same trouble reading it on the page, because it's going to be even harder when you're reading it on the page. You could just have an entire staged reading for your book.
Well,
I saw someone say you could use there's some function, and I wish I could tell you exactly where to find it, but that you can have somewhere in Google, they will actually read it to you. And so if if reading it out loud yourself isn't doing the trick and you want to hear someone else reading it, you can Google that. But
again, what you just said is so important. If you're stumbling, or you're reading something out loud and it's not working for you, then it's not going to work for the reader.
Absolutely. Right? And sometimes something will look fine on the page because your eyes kind of go over it and you know what you meant when you wrote it, and so you don't trip on it as much. But if you have to say it out loud, sometimes you'll go, oh my gosh, that was a terrible sentence, that is so clunky. And there's so many times when you read a line of dialogue that you really go, oh, now that I hear it, it's kind of like that joke, like, oh, I hear it now.
Yeah, no, it's such an important tip. And again, I love stage readings for that, because it is an opportunity for the playwright to hear it, to see if what audience reaction, but also for actors to be able to give insight into it. So if we could all afford to have actors read our book, that would be great.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Here's
a new service we can offer, is acting out people's books for them. No, but I think it's something like text to speech or something. Like there's, something where you can put it in and the computer will read it to you, which, could be an interesting way to do it too. But
I read on social media, there was a conversation on one of the, probably threads or something, where some people, when they read, they hear the words and other people don't. I don't know if you're like,
interesting.
Right? So pay attention to how you read, because I hear the words when I'm writing or when I'm reading. And so I wonder if that just helps me fix things, or whatever, or helps it do things. But other people, I don't think, do that. So it's, do you hear the words when you're reading or writing?
It's kind of a mixture. It kind of depends on if the sentences are short. I mean, if it's really, when it's snappy back and forth like banter, I definitely hear it. This morning I was replaying a particularly fun little bit of banter between two of my main characters that I was just editing, and I was walking around and it was like playing in my head. But when it's short, I definitely kind of hear it, but I think mostly I read it. But that's an interesting... This is going to be like that blue dress, gold dress thing.
I know. But this is why we have these conversations with people, because not everyone does things the same way or approaches things the same way. There's no one way to write.
It was like that huge thing where people, everybody was realizing that not everybody can visualize things in their head.
Yeah.
And there's that Apple test where it's a chart and it's like, which do you picture? Is it kind of like a blob, or is it like this fully formed apple? And it's like that people are on the spectrum of how much detail that they can see things in their head, or whether they have an interior monologue or not. And that's one of the great things that's, I think, come from social media, is realizing that we are all very wired very differently.
Yeah, it's very cool. Well, Marla, we are glad that you are wired the way you are, and we're glad that you're a member of Sisters in Crime. And thank you so much for this fabulous conversation.
Thank you. It's great chatting with you. And yeah, everybody, if you're not a member of Sisters in Crime, go join it. And if you're in Texas, come join us at Sisters in Crime Heart of Texas chapter. I'm actually a member of a couple of chapters, so yeah, join others too.
Yes. No.
We do Zoom our meetings. We have in person, and we also let people Zoom in. So you can come even if you're not right here in Austin, like me.
There you go. Texas writers, go. Thank you, Marla.
Thanks, Julie. It was great talking to you.
Great talking to you as well.
Bye.